Global nuclear liability insurance and claims. Power and energy supply is the backbone of every economy of this world. Despite the leaps made in technological advancement to cater to the ever-growing demand of power with the exponential increase of human population, we are falling short of the power supply. To provide an adequate amount of power, man has employed various resources from non-renewable to renewable, yet an equilibrium between demand and supply seems far-fetched. Most of the power today is derived from thermal plants, which use coal as a primary resource. The recent years have witnessed a shift to clean energy for power generation, nuclear energy as an alternative to the conventional sources. However, power generation from nuclear reactors pose a more substantial threat of causing major mishap and accident which could potentially damage property, cause personal injury, and damage the environment on magnanimous scale. The potential underlying risk has thrown a significantly challenging question before the political heads of the world. Who will be liable for the damage caused by such a nuclear incident? Several nations have addressed the concept of nuclear liability insurance and compensatory claim made by the injured parties through legally binding international convention or and national laws, which has been analyzed in great length in this paper. How is nuclear energy liability insurance structured? The insurer found it challenging to resolve the problem of figuring out how to provide cover for the nuclear industry. To them, the apparent catastrophic risk posed a high level of uncertainty. In addition to the multiple individual claims, should the nuclear accident occur, resulting in an objectionable accumulation and undesirable exposure to insurer solvency margin. On one hand, in essence, it was clear that no individual insurer could cover the risk alone, and on the other hand, it was obvious that since nuclear power is required to meet the world's energy demand, and that in order for it to continue doing so, individual operator liability had detailed or capped to an absolute upper limit beyond which the risk needed to have concerted. The state would have to step in and accept responsibility as insurer of last resort, as with everything else in industrial societies. While structuring insurance for nuclear reactors, the only factor which ought to be considered is the high potential perils associated with installation and operation of nuclear fission and fusion. This drastically differs from the risk associated to that of other industries of global sector. The fundamental of any nuclear liability insurance are channeling of liability on the operators. The nuclear operators are liable for all damage caused by a nuclear incident notwithstanding fault liability. Transporter nationality. A nuclear energy disaster affects not only the country in which it is located, but the surrounding state as well. Hence, national laws are augmented with international conventions which are needed to defend the cross-border infliction of such disaster. Limited liability. Limited civil liability concept has been incorporated by the International Convention on the basis which the national laws have been formulated, putting a maximum cap limit on the nuclear operators, beyond which the state will take up the liability. Due to such high risk and strict liability, the nuclear operators opt for third-party civil liability insurance which finds its root in either of the two forms. National Insurance Pool. To cover the potential liability of the nuclear industry, many insurers agreed to pool their resources for the associated high potential risk. A pool is where a group of insurance companies jointly participate to a fixed percentage in the insurance of a particular risk or class of business. These are created in the circumstance involving risks which in practically cannot be provided by any individual insurer on a standalone basis. In most countries, national insurance pools have been formed based on the requirement laid down by the federal laws based on international convention pooling together insurance for the domestic nuclear operators. Mutual Insurance Association. The USA, the Nuclear Electric Insurance Limited, and Europe, the European Mutual Insurance for Nuclear Installation, have insurance association which deal with the physical damage and liability in the event of a nuclear accident, which is set up by the nuclear industry itself. Principles are fundamentals governing nuclear liability insurance. In recognition of this exposure caused by nuclear accident, the International Convention on Nuclear Liability Insurance were formulated in the light of the seven fundamental principles. Strict liability. The operator is directly and strictly liable for the damage caused by the nuclear incident. The aggrieved need not prove that the operator was negligent or at fault. Only the link between the damage caused and the nuclear incident need to be demonstrated. The operator is liable for any damage resulting from a nuclear event at his installation, in principle irrespective of its cause. Channeling liability to the operator, exclusive liability. All liability arising from the damage caused by a nuclear accident is channeled to the operator, thereby protecting the right of the public. The operator is exclusively liable for damage resulting from a nuclear incident. He is held liable to the exclusion of any other person, regardless of who caused the damage. Hence, the damage is charged to the operator himself and not the supplier. The channeling of liability might seem unfair as it means that the operator could be liable even if a third party were negligent or at fault. The victim of a nuclear incident can only present his claim to the operator of the installation causing damage or his insurer. Furthermore, such exclusive liability brings certainty in insurance claim as the compensation settlement will be quick and avoid costly and time-consuming claim procedures. Had the situation been otherwise, then insurers would have to hold separate pools or covers for every party involved in the nuclear reactor chain. Limitation of liability in time. This is an important concept because the injury caused by a nuclear incident may not manifest for several years. Ergo, a limitation period is intended to help the claimant where the consequences may not reveal for several years, thereby not divulging them of their right to seek damage, and at the same time it protects the right of the operators and insurers by not exposing them of liability for an indefinite period. For example, in the UK, the Nuclear Installation Act 1965 states that any claim made after 10 years from the date of occurrence of the nuclear incident but less than 30 years will be made directly to the government instead of the insurer or the operator.